Welcome to Out is Through, a podcast about living a meaningful life in difficult times. I'm Larry Lariosa, and I'm a life coach and licensed marriage and family therapist. In these uncertain times, maintaining a sense of well-being and purpose feels more challenging, yet more important than ever. In this podcast, I'll feature guests who have used their life experience, passion, and creativity to find personal meaning and deeper connection. As the saying goes, the only way out is through. And I hope these conversations help inspire you to live life to its fullest. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome to another episode of Out is Through, a podcast about living a meaningful life in difficult times. My name is Larry Lariosa, your host. So this episode is being released in June. And June is LGBTQ plus Pride Month, not only here in the US, but in many places across the globe. And for those of you who don't know, this will mark the 56th year since the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, resulting in the first Pride March in New York City in 1970. And for Pride Month, I am so thrilled to bring two incredible women to today's podcast. They're a married couple, co-parents, co-creators, and business partners who I've been greatly inspired by over the last decade. We'll hear about their journey pursuing their passion projects, promoting advocacy for LGBTQ plus rights, as well as building their own financial planning business, Modern Family Finance. Today, we'll also have a conversation about the sometimes dreaded topic of money and why money matters in building a life of meaning and purpose. Jennifer and Lisa Dazols are the dynamic duo behind Modern Family Finance, blending financial expertise and social advocacy to empower women and LGBTQ plus professionals. Jennifer, a certified financial planner and former Silicon Valley tech director, specializes in guiding clients through intentional financial journeys. Lisa, a licensed clinical social worker with a background in psychotherapy, brings a compassionate approach to operations, ensuring clients feel understood and supported. Together, they've produced the documentary Out and Around, delivered a TED Talk with over 3 million views, and founded the Asia Rainbow Ride to champion LGBTQ plus rights in Asia. So let's bring Jennifer and Lisa onto the podcast. I want to welcome to our podcast today, Lisa and Jenny. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Out is Through. I'm so happy to have both of you. You both, I look to as people in both your creative projects and your professional projects who have really been on this journey of finding meaning and finding connection at different stages in your life. And I'm lucky to have known you during a few of those stages. So the first question I ask everybody, we're in really uncertain, challenging times. How are you doing?
Well, I think we're fully embracing San Francisco and our friends in this blue bubble, and so yeah, we're doing okay. We're trying to. It's important to us to stay connected to one another and build community. We have two kids too, so they keep us positive about the future.
Yeah. How are they doing? Are they affected by it, or are they kind of just...
Our daughter's 9, so she sometimes will see news headlines. There is some anxiety for her as she because she's old enough to kind of understand high level some of these things, and she'll ask us like, what are these tariffs, or like what's happening. So we just try our best to help her understand that we're safe here and that hopefully...
I mean, we focus on what are the steps we can all do.
Yeah.
Because when you have a 9-year-old, you have no choice but to be optimistic about the future.
That's true.
So we have to focus on, what can we do to positively affect climate change, to positively affect the country,
Yeah.
to protect people that are vulnerable. So that's how we focus on it.
There's something about young people that I think we need to protect during this time because, they need a good childhood and they need the to get in a healthy way the building blocks that are going to set them up for this next chapter. I'm thinking about your kids. I'm thinking about a lot of young people right now and just how to stay above it all while leaning into it. Well, maybe on that note, since everybody's okay, we can lean into the interview. And I know you have a story together, which I want to capture, but maybe if you can tell us a little bit about your individual stories and how your upbringing may have led to what you do now and this desire for a meaningful life.
Sure. Well, I was like a, middle class kid in Daly City. And, my parents sent me to Catholic school. And especially in my Catholic high school, there was a big emphasis on service to become men and women for others. So like the service on the most vulnerable in our society. And I'm not a rah-rah for the Catholic Church, but for Catholic school teaching, it's pretty liberal and radical in terms of social justice. And so I grabbed onto that, especially as I went to a Jesuit college as well. And I think that really led me into social work, led me to South America with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And out of that came my desire to go to social work school. And then I actually had a priest who told me, well, you should you should work in the area that makes you the most angry. And I think it was the lack of, here I had grown up in San Francisco, the LGBT capital of the world, what you call it. And I struggled to come out. So I thought, well, if I struggled to come out growing up here, this makes me really angry. And so that's where I wanted to put my focus on. That's where I felt like where I could make the most impact.
Yeah, I mean, people forget Daly City, even though it's like not very far away. It's a different world.
A very foggy world with great Filipino food.
Yes. Yeah. Um, and how about you, Jenny? What do you want to share about your early life?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents were immigrants from Taiwan, and so I was first gen here. A lot of my childhood was shaped by just the religious upbringing that I had. My parents were very involved in the Asian American Evangelical Church, and I was like very much involved with that. And I think I had a lot of identity crisis too with being Asian American in a place which now is different, but at the time growing up, I'd be like one of two Asian kids in a grade kind of thing, and just feeling very othered and I guess honestly kind of inferior. And so that shaped a lot of my growing up. And then of course as a young adult, then I came out as being queer, and that was very, very challenging for my family. Still is, but it's, over, it's been 20 years since then. So they've over time have come to acceptance or at least tolerance of my family. But just the coming out process for me was very hard because it was, I think, my parents and their traditional mindset combined with the religion and all that. So that whole upbringing really made me very passionate and interested about being independent myself and being able to forge my own way in life. Just it required in my 20s like a wholesale like loss of like my whole childhood framework of life and to create a new one. And that was when I moved to San Francisco and just really created a whole new life community for myself. And that need and desire for independence also led me into an interest in financial independence, because I do think that is a core part of independence too, is being able to be financially free. And that's kind of what led many, many steps along the journey, but eventually led me to want to become a financial planner, working particularly with women and LGBTQ people to have that kind of financial independence.
Yeah, thank you for that. I love how I mean, you both have these stories of obviously queerness growing up with some religious influence that may have shaped the way you saw yourself. But I think about the work you've done since. So we'll talk through some of the advocacy work you've done, the film, the Asia Rainbow Bride. But that makes sense that that was a place you could put this anger or this like need to be independent and empower others. Let's talk about, how did you meet? How did these two worlds collide?
So we met on the AIDS life cycle, which kind of foreshadows the Asia Rainbow Ride. We both really enjoyed the experience of community that we felt when we were doing the San Francisco AIDS life cycle. It's a charity bike ride from San Francisco to LA. So we met then.
So your relationship also led you to a few passion projects. Let's first talk about Out and Around. How did your relationship sort of lead you down the path of documentary filmmaking?
Very spontaneously, I would say. It kind of it started out with like two desires. One, I think one that everyone can understand is a desire to escape your 9 to 5 and travel around the world. I think everyone can understand that impetus. And then the other desire was like, hey, we want to meet other thriving LGBTQ people who are not from the Western world. I think at least for me, again, I grew up in this Asian American religious like situation. I, at least to my knowledge, knew no gay people growing up, and and then when I did seek that community in my 20s, I didn't see too many models of non-Caucasian LGBTQ people out in the public, or obviously it's changed now, but at least this was like 20 plus years ago. And so my desire was like, hey, I want to travel to like Asia and other countries and talk to people and figure out what life is like there. So that was the impetus. And then eventually we did take a year off and start capturing these stories, and we would videotape them and would kind of share them in like vlogs. And then that became the documentary.
Yeah, I think we thought we didn't set out to make a film because we weren't filmmakers, but we set out to capture these stories. And along the way, I think the thing that happens when you start building community,
Yeah.
especially when you have a mission that people can share, is like other people start to want to help. And so then we realized, well, I didn't go to film school, but one of my best friends from high school did, and she says that we should do this. And then, they put you in touch with this, and then like they started offering, different things to help. And so the project kind of just grew beyond us, which it needed to actually become a film. So we felt quite fortunate to, we had the raw skills to do interviews and to film, but it took a whole team of editors, actual filmmakers who took our footage and then produced it.
Yeah, I mean, the film is so powerful and still so relevant because you finished it in.
In 2015, well, stopped filming in 2013, and now it's just on YouTube for free. We still have schools who want to download it and show it in their classrooms, and we partnered with It Gets Better projects. We have these very cool educational guidelines. It's in several languages. It captures our story from Asia, Africa, and South America. So it just turned out to be kind of a unique story, but one of the most rewarding things we've done.
Yeah, yeah. And even though like you're going on your 10-year anniversary of the film, and I think about the times we're in now and how it still feels so relevant, and how as a world there's so much work to still be done around LGBTQ rights and activism. And so your film is just sort of this beautiful account of your relationship, but the story of people putting their lives at risk in order to get their human rights.
Yeah, I mean, I remember interviewing one of the people in South America who said like these movements are two steps forward, one step back. So I think of that in terms of today because I think as a young person in the Bay Area, I was quite naive. And so I don't think that the movement is over by any means or like we're defeated. We've taken one step back and hopefully we'll take two big leaps forward next.
Yes, I'm ready to jump. Okay, and let's talk about, and maybe you can tell folks how you ended up in Taiwan for a few years, but Asia Rainbow Ride, how that came about.
Yeah, so we had taken a break from our careers to travel for the year to make the film. And then fast forward, I don't even know, 5 years later, I had taken a break from my career again to watch our kids. We were living in Europe for Jenny's work because we enjoyed traveling so much. And then during COVID, we were visiting our parents in Taiwan. And we happened to be there with the kids when everything kind of shut down. And we decided to stay in Taiwan because Taiwan did so well during COVID. So we were kind of on this party island for a year and a half, and we were in between jobs, and so Taiwan has the biggest LGBT community in Asia, and it was at that time the only country in Asia that
I
had.
don't know if it was the biggest, but the most public, I guess
Yeah,
you could say.
it had China. Yeah, I would say there's more LGBT people in China, but it was the only country at that time that had marriage equality, and it does still have the largest pride parade in all of Asia. And so we were just getting to know that community. And because We had this great experience of the AIDS life cycle in California. I started talking to people, leaders who worked for nonprofits, about like, what if we started an Asia Rainbow Ride, a 3-day bike ride here in Taiwan, leading up to Pride, just like they do in California. What if we started it? What would happen? And so my hope was really that just to share that idea and connect them to people in California. But then I found myself kind of starting it because there just needed to be a bridge. And so we were kind of the perfect bridge. I had worked for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. I knew I could connect to the executive director. And so we started it, and it ran for 4 years. We did 4 rides. We had quite participation from, we got grants from the city of Taipei. We had corporate sponsors. The top leading NGOs in Taiwan were our beneficiaries. And, our last year, we think we had 125 riders. So yeah, we ended up, we were an NGO, an official NGO in Taiwan. And sadly, at year 5, we just couldn't get the number of registrants, so we ended up having to stop. So again, it felt like two steps forward, one step back. But I do think that it planted some seeds. Our closing of the Rainbow Ride also coincided with us leaving Taiwan. But my hope is that there were some seeds that hopefully something will continue in the future, because I think a lot of friendships were made and there was a lot of excitement about the ride.
Yeah, I mean, you said something really important about being a bridge and starting it. So many of these things that bring us meaning are creating things that haven't been done that might be templates for other people to follow, and hopefully that could be one, because I think a lot of people have great ideas and we're one person or one family or one mind, and the starting it though is often the thing that never gets done. And so now there is a template, whether it goes on and other people take it on, or whether it was created and that's just sort of an archive of what could be done with the Asia Rainbow Ride. You created it, you started it, and that can't be undone.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of our proudest moments was we had 5 activists from Taiwan come to California to experience the AIDS life cycle. They got a scholarship. They spent the whole 2 weeks in a training program with them about the ride itself. So I think sometimes meaningful work, like I felt like, oh, we failed. We had to close it down. It didn't work. But then I think that we were the right person to start it. But like really, they are the ones who need to continue. Like we couldn't stay for the ride. Our lives took us in another direction. But I hope that made an impact on them. I know it did. I know that it will lead to something in their work.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything you wanted to say about that, Jenny? Or
It was really interesting to be doing this in Taiwan, right? Obviously, I have deep connection to Taiwan. I've never lived in Taiwan until that period of time. My parents are from there. I visited a lot as a child, and I always never thought of Taiwan as someplace I would want to live. And then COVID kind of brought us there and kept us there. And I've just really developed a personal connection with Taiwan just to see my kids be able to speak Chinese fluently. Lisa somehow managed to live there for 5 years. You know what I mean? She's not learning Chinese. Now, it did create a lot of conflict with my parents, who were like, why are you doing this in my country? But it was still worthwhile for me, and to really recognize that actually, like, there's a great queer community in Taiwan. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's still lots of challenges because there still is a lot of traditional mindsets there, especially as it relates to parents, accepting children and things like that. But it was nice to kind of, I guess, realize that part of me that I just, as a child, I felt like inferior for being Asian, and then kind of being able to connect back to that as an adult.
But I think going back to like this idea of meaningful work, the film and the Asia Rainbow Ride, we never made $1 off of it. In fact, we only lost money. But we gained so much, like these things that you can't put a monetary value on, which was like a lot of friendships. We gained a lot of confidence because we learned all these skills that we later used to build our own business, like marketing skills, newsletter, how to do a newsletter, all these things that we had done for these nonprofit, projects. It also just gave us kind of good energy. Some of clients like the stuff that we do, so that's a reason why they signed on with us. We gained a lot of just connections and networking. Yeah, I think like we thought we were crazy for spending all of this time without earning a penny. But it really kept us in Taiwan. It was one of the main reasons why we stayed so long.
And might be a great segue into this very complicated, loaded topic of money that I find myself kind of getting tense around. It says a lot about my relationship to money, but before we make that pivot, I want to acknowledge what you said, Lisa, about giving and creating meaning that doesn't have to be tied to money because we get paid in other ways. And then something that Jenny said just around the reciprocity of giving back something to this country of your ancestors, and it caused maybe a little bit of family tension, but then the bravery that you were able to do that. And also just, I think about, like, I mean, my ancestors are an archipelago away. A lot of times there's this thought about, people taking from the islands but never giving. Like, it's this, oh, people go on their vacations or they live there for a while and it's wonderful, and then they go back to their American lives or their European lives, and what you found there was you built a community and you really touched the people that were involved in Asia Rainbow Ride, and that it was a reciprocal dynamic. They gave something to you and you gave them something. Let's take a break and we'll return to our conversation with Jennifer and Lisa.
I wanted to travel around the world with the women that I love. We're so lucky to be from San Francisco. We wanted to see what queer life was like outside the West.
Let the adventure begin.
I lost a lot of people in my life when I came out. I went on this trip wanting to connect with others like me, but I never thought that this journey would also fill me with so much hope about this world.
Me siento muy orgullosa de Argentina porque Argentina hoy es un modelo de igualdad y ojalá muy pronto tengamos en todo el mundo los mismos derechos con los mismos nombres.
It's not a national issue anymore. It's a global issue. And we have to all unite. Gay rights cannot be won in the courtrooms, but in the hearts and the minds of the people.
You were listening to the trailer for Jennifer and Lisa's 2015 film, Out and Around. Now let's get back to the conversation. So your latest venture is Modern Family Finance. And let's talk about that calling that you've had, that business that you've built. How did it start?
I mean, it has percolated in my head for like at least over a decade plus. Lisa's heard me talk about. Early on, I had a coworker call me 401J because of how much I love talking about retirement plan. My name is Jenny, starts with J. I think I've always had a very personal interest in personal finance because of that desire for independence. And honestly, I would say that the Out and Around film project was an original impetus because we got so much life from that meaningful work and that meaningful experience. Like, never once did I miss my corporate job. Before getting into this, I was in corporate like tech for many years, right? And I just realized from that experience that like, I need to find a way to get out of this. I don't want to be doing this forever. I want my family to have choices, and to have the freedom and privilege for Lisa to be able to step away from work and just be a full-time caregiver, which not everybody wants to do, but to have the freedom and capacity to do that was like, also like, wow, okay, how can this is very powerful. Basically we see money as a way to provide, it's a fuel for being able to live your best life, whatever that looks like. It's a fuel for giving you optionality. But most people, I think, see money as a constraint. Like, what can I afford to do? How can I afford to live versus how do I want to live and how do I use my money to support that? Obviously, it requires trade-offs, but I think if you can be intentional about it, you can. For many of us, we have the ability to kind of create the life. Like, it's like, why not? Why can't you do that? Of course you can. You can just leave your job for a year in your 30s. Isn't that terrible for your career? We did it. It was scary, but I think that financial confidence enabled us to do that. A lot of times for people, I see financial anxiety stop them from living their best lives. So that's really kind of what was the genesis for wanting to get into this work with modern family finance.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. Because when I think about meaning, I don't think about money. And you've so helped me see that connection. A couple things in your story, I'm just hearing like the freedom part. That word has come up a lot. Like I think of money as like being this constraining thing that I have to have. But I like how the way you reframe it, that it actually gives you these opportunities that you wouldn't really have, because the anxiety of money is like not fun. Right? It actually stunts the creative brain, because the creative brain wants to be free and the meaning brain wants to not have barriers. And when I think of most people's barriers, both mine, my clients, my community, it's always money.
That's exactly it. I believe that the number one reason people don't pursue their true calling in life is due to financial anxiety. I have had many, many conversations at this point with people about money. And I ask them as part of it, like, tell me what do you want to do with your ideal life? What is your ideal 24 hours? Most of the time, it's like nothing tremendously crazy. Like they're not looking to buy yachts or anything like that. What people want is meaningful work. And oftentimes that's related to creative work and whatever capacity that means for people, right? And it also relates to helping others and being with loved ones. And then the biggest constraint standing in the way of that is like all the time they have to spend to do work, to earn money, right? So those two things are very correlated. The financial anxiety is a key obstacle to that. So a lot of the work that I do with clients is a lot of times the anxiety is not, it's an internal anxiety. It's not actually the objective reality. So it's helping people see that actually they are okay. That's part of it. And then part of it is like creating a plan so that they can see the path, how to create that financial security and independence for their life. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is frankly just it's mindset. The numbers are part of it, but a lot of it, financial anxiety is due to mindset.
Yeah. And I want to hear Lisa's thoughts, and also this question is for both of you. Like you serve all, but really you want to focus on queer people and women, and so I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, so like I'm a social worker at heart, right? Like so when Jenny's like, we're gonna start a business in financial planning, I was like, I'm gonna go from like working with the homeless HIV positive clients of San Francisco to the millionaires of the city. Like, wait a second. But I think it was more like we had this idea of what if we financially empower LGBT people? What would this world look like if we had financially empowered women and LGBT people? And I'm like, I think this would be a much better world because they could do projects like projects that we've done. They could feel more free. They give back, right? So that was what brought me into the idea of our business. Was like, I don't want to help people make money just to make money. I want to help people, just like as a therapist, you want to help empower your clients. And so that's at the core of what we're trying to do. We're not saying like everything's in your mind is fine. You're you don't have to work your meaningless job. We're saying financial planning is about like, how long do you need to stay at your job to reach your financial goals? We were working in jobs that we eventually wanted to leave while we were doing our side gigs that were bringing a lot of meaning. So we're just talking about like, how can we be intentional about our lives so that people don't feel stuck forever? That's
Thank you. That was a good summary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you've answered my next question, which is why is money and financial planning relevant to this conversation? It's extremely relevant for all the reasons you talked about. So just kind of jumping off that, I think so in episode 3, I talked to Jose Alaman. In his episode, we talk about queer power, and specifically for cis queer men. But again, I think it sort of universalizes, and I'm geeking out on these two books, Coming Out Spiritually and Gay Men and the New Way Forward. And in both of those books, they talk about this second coming out, which is really coming out spiritually, coming out in our fullness, because you look at every indigenous society, queer people were everywhere. We were the healers, we were the keepers of beauty, we were the revolutionaries, we were the truth tellers, we were the rebels, we were the artists. And when I bring you into this conversation about money, how we can use our natural gifts to actually be even more powerful, right? Because all of those things, especially the keeper of beauty, but all of those things require money. And we have these natural gifts. So I love making that connection around how being financially stable allows meaning to be more expanded. Not that you can't get it with not having money, but that we live in a world where we have to rely on money as a metrics to help us realize certain things. So I think there's a just a interesting connection there around queerness, our gifts, and how money can help support some of that.
And I just want to chime in here. I think particularly in the queer community, I feel like sometimes, and I'm married to a social worker who she had her own qualms about money. It's like it's looked upon a little bit like, oh, it's evil, it's a necessary evil. It's, I wish we could just get rid of it. I think a more helpful framing of it is more just that money is a form of life energy that we trade with one another, and that we also trade with ourselves. Money allows us to take life energy from point A and utilize it in point B, right? And sometimes when we're doing, like going back to the conversation about work and financial planning, like sometimes you are saving and using your life energy to create some money that you can then use later or give to other people or things that you care about. I think that's just a more helpful framing. This book I love, it's called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. And it's really just about thinking about money like, if you think about it like water. A lot of people think about water, like your money is like in a pool, like this stagnant pond, and you're just trying to hoard it and you're trying to keep as much as possible, But actually, a healthy pool is like with water going in and out and keeping it fresh. And that's the same thing how money goes through our lives. It's coming in and out, and we don't have to freak out when it goes out. And just we have to also trust that it will come in and that we want that. Like, I guess the gift of this life is like in part is to be able to direct where that flow goes. And I think that's really what financial planning is about.
I like that. I like that. Can you say anything specific to women and money and that kind of relationship?
I mean, so much. Women feel so disempowered at times about money, whether it's in the workplace, in their households. Oftentimes people feel like they don't know what's going on. And we're still in an industry that's very dominated by men. So just like you want to when if you're LGBT and you're coming out, you want to pick a therapist. You want to work with someone who's either queer themselves or very culturally competent to work with you. And I think that's the same with our clients. Like, we see straight people for sure, but oftentimes it's that the woman in the relationship is the one who has been handling the finances and wants to feel comfortable talking to somebody who understands that.
Yeah, or we have straight couples come in because the woman's fed up with not either feeling like they're getting transparency from their spouse or they're not understanding what's going on, and they're like, forget it. I need an advocate with me. So we definitely work with queer women, obviously, single women. Our tagline is that working with us is like working with a trusted friend. And that's what we are for a lot of people, is their trusted friend when it comes to finances. So their advocate, their coach, their supporter, their explainer. And I think women in particular really value that. And there is like, I think perhaps sometimes mistakenly, I think men sometimes have this overconfidence in finances. There's some underconfidence in finances, and there's a bit more insecurity. You see a lot more of cash hoarding because they're afraid. And I think it's partly because women tend to talk. I'm generalizing here. We just don't talk about money as much. Whereas if you have a group of men together, they're more likely to talk about what they invest in, what they're doing, and that is knowledge sharing, And I think as women, we don't talk about that as much, which is a shame. I think there should be more transparency about money.
But in adulting, there's just a lot of decisions you have to make. Like, should I buy this house? How much should I spend on saving for my kids' college versus saving for retirement? Versus, should I do this renovation? Can I afford to leave this job? Like, how much? Like, it's a lot of math. It's a lot of trying to understand where the best investments are.
I mean, we often ask ourselves, how does anyone do this? There's so much.
Yeah, you gotta coordinate with your tax person, you
Yes.
gotta make sure your estate plans are, I mean, like, it's, there's a lot to learn. So, it's a lot of stress to hold if you're doing it on your own. And so that's where we try to relieve people's stress so that they have some guidance.
Yeah, I think your life, both your life stories and your experience as filmmakers and organizers have really set you up for this career well. I know when I have used financial planners in the past, and ironically they were both men, I felt like a money machine. Not that I have money, but I felt like a money machine, and it was all about kind of typical male, work hard, provide, produce, all of that kind of mentality that I think a lot of men are socialized with, and it felt very distancing. I was like, I don't get it, because I am somebody who needs to really feel it and understand it. I need to feel like I have a colleague in it, or I have somebody who is collectively seeing that I'm so not like a money machine, that for me, what really turns me on is meaning and purpose. And so I think that is a strength that you both bring to this work that I think that I haven't seen in financial planning before. Or if it is, it's kind of like, it's kind of this thing to reel you in, but it doesn't really, the conversations are never about meaning and purpose. So I appreciate that. Okay, so I have three more questions. I work with a lot of couples as a psychotherapist, and one model that I like is the Gottman house. So the Gottman house is just like, so the Gottmans are this.
Oh, we know. We've done the program.
Oh, okay. Well, for those in my audience who don't know, the Gottmans are these researchers. They've written a lot of books about couples, and they have the Gottman house, which you're very familiar with. In the links and description episode for this page, I will have a link to the Gottmans and the Gottman house. But they have, like, on the sides of the house, they have trust and commitment, and then the foundational stuff around, like, the love maps and the positive perspective and the turning toward. But one thing that I'm really impressed with you two as a couple is you're really focused on the attic, or at least what I'm hearing a lot of is the attic stuff. So that's the shared meaning and purpose, that you've made this intentional decision to have a full life as a couple, which I think, not, I hate it when people put Terry and I on a pedestal. I'm like, don't put us on a pedestal, because you haven't seen us in the morning. But I just want to acknowledge that a lot of your meaning has been in partnership with each other, and that being a couple. But that also, like, a theme in this podcast, other speakers have talked about, is just healing in community or healing with others. We need each other, whether that's in a romantic relationship, whether that's in a bigger community, which you've created with Out and Around and Asia Rainbow Ride, and even Modern Family Finance. So my next question is, you've done so many things: a documentary film, starting Asia Rainbow Ride, and building a financial business together on top of raising two wonderful kids. How has this project given you a sense of meaning and purpose and or connection with others?
I mean, I can answer first. I remember kind of coming from corporate tech, I'd be kind of jealous of the work that Lisa does and the work that you do in terms of having this very direct relationship, personal relationship with your clients, and having a very direct impact on people's lives that you can see and touch, right? And I think Out and Around and even Asia Rainbow Ride, there definitely was, we did it for the impact, but it was kind of a more of a general thing. So I feel very privileged to be in these intimate conversations with my clients, using my gifts, which are different from yours and Lisa's. I couldn't be a therapist, but using my gifts to help them in this very practical, but also deeply emotional and meaningful way. So that's created a lot of meaning for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jay and I work together. We're not the only people in our company. We have a team. So I get meeting from our team meetings, from the events that we have with clients. Oftentimes Jay's like, we should go to dinner with these people. They're fun. So, like, our clients are really people that we would be friends with.
Or we were friends first, and
Yes,
then they became friends.
yes. But I guess the meaning, like, we are going to Taiwan for 2 months this summer, taking the kids to go back to visit our old life there, to go to school. we will be working this summer as we take our business. So I think it just kind of fits into the family flexibility and lifestyle. So, I'm not seeing clients one-to-one in the way I used to, but I get meeting from the work because we're just turning. Now it's like before I used to get all the meeting out of client work. Now Jenny's getting it out of client work, and I'm the operations person, but I'm making the family flow. So I think it's just the whole package, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting to work with her, honestly, like getting to see. I feel lucky because in our family, we work from home, so we see our kids a lot and we see each other a lot. And so we have to do the Gottman exercises so we stay happy, and we have our date night once a week. But that's one of the things that people want, is to spend more time with their family, and we do it. So that's a big bonus.
Yeah, and I would imagine, because you do work in this team, that in these challenging times with money and the markets, that having that collaboration with other people and that venting and that shared, you're holding a lot of your clients' anxieties, you're probably holding your own, and just being on a team together, I imagine that is really grounding in these tumultuous times.
Yeah, we have a whole network of other advisors we work with as well, so we're not like, making up things on our own. uh, yeah, so it's a good industry. When you find your tribe in the industry, it's a great one.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for listeners who may have ideas about pursuing meaning through a passion project or through a career trajectory, but may be stuck in their creative process?
Yes. I work with a lot of clients who feel that way. I really strongly believe in experimentation and not feeling like your next thing has to be this huge life-changing thing. I believe in just trying little things. If you think you want to write a book or make a film, just make a vlog. I don't even think they're called vlogs anymore, whatever they're called, right? Make a
short
TikTok,
film.
I don't know, whatever that is, right? Write a page, right? Like just do these little practices. If you think you might want to take 2 years off, but that sounds really scary, take a week off. If you think you want to leave the country and move to Canada, go visit. Like just these small things just to get, I think that breeds confidence and an increased desire for it, and that will help you kind of take like the big steps that we've taken. It sounds sometimes when we tell a story of our lives, it seems like, oh, you made all these dramatic leaps, and it's like actually there were a lot of little steps. Like we couldn't have done one thing without having done the other. I mean, I'm a financial planner. I'm all about risk management. We didn't do things without really considering
Like
risk.
before we made the film, we did like 5 interviews with our friends in San Francisco
Yes.
that were just small video chats.
Yes.
To see, like, do we even like this? What
Do we
kind of
know how to
questions
do
to
this?
ask?
What camera should I buy?
What kind of camera? It's like that all happened
Yeah.
way before the attention
Before we launched this full business, we did some kind of just free coaching just to see
friends were
can I actually do
friends
this?
were like, can you help me
Yes.
like figure out where to
Yes.
put my money? Like friends who were getting married were like, we will do a fun presentation for you over dinner.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, when I bring it back to queer power, I think about like those archetypes, risk takers. We're kind of the magicians, right? We sometimes create something out of nothing, or we figure it out, and you don't have to be perfect at anything to make something beautiful. And it seems like that's been this theme, that you've used your gifts, your natural gifts, but you gave yourself permission to be experimental and risk takers. In some ways, I think about young Lisa and the advice you got about the anger, and I think about young Jenny and the independence, and in a way that's sort of this beautiful fusion of how you've made a lot of these decisions. Well, before we wrap up, I have a question that some people love and some people hate. I don't know where you fall on that line.
This one gave us a lot of anxiety. We're like, oh my God, I don't have any music that I like.
And I've given you permission to come up with a collective playlist, but if you want to be more collaborative, an individual list if you want to be more independent. But if you were stranded on a deserted island, what 3 albums would you bring with you, and why?
We'll do collective. You name
Okay.
one, I'll name one, you name one.
Well, I thought I would bring like an Indigo Girls greatest hits.
You're such a lesbian.
I know. Well, I thought you were going to say Melissa Etheridge.
No, that's not what I was gonna say. I'm gonna say I would bring the Encanto soundtrack.
Oh no! Yeah, that's actually, I was going to say Hamilton.
No.
Because you never know what they're saying, and that would or just a medley of all Lin-Manuel's music,
Yes.
so that we can sit there and decipher and learn it.
Well, I love Encanto. Well, one, obviously my kids love it, and that's
Good.
really
You can
fun.
do the whole package.
If I
Encanto,
don't know, I
Hamilton,
really think
Vivo.
yes, that's true. I like songs from all of them. But Encanto is such a great story too about family dynamics, and just such great songs. That one.
And what's the third?
It's the third
I
one.
don't know.
I don't know. It should be a musical. Lisa and I like musicals.
We do.
Would it be West Side Story?
Sure.
I mean, very early on in our dating, we were like, I don't know, I think building IKEA furniture. And I like really did, I have always enjoyed musicals growing up, which, Larry, we love your musical. We went to go see Freeze.
Larry was in
Yes.
it. I saw Larry in West Side.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Who was Larry? Who'd you play?
I played Chino.
Oh!
Yeah.
good job.
Of course, the more, I mean, he was written as the Puerto Rican who had some Chinese hybrid, so I guess that's where my Filipino-ness sort of.
That you could be a Chino. Yeah.
Well, great, and I think about like both of those being so like I like Encanto because it's got the family dynamics and it's also playful. Hamilton for all the reasons because Hamilton's just such a great musical, period, and the music is great. And then the Indigo Girls, I've always had a soft spot for them because there's something about their music that I listen to and I'm like, oh, things are gonna be okay. Like there's just something soothing about their harmonies and their message. So I
We were on the
definitely.
island long enough we could harmonize.
Very
Well,
nice.
I appreciate you both taking the time to be on this podcast and share your story, share what drives you to find meaning and also the important reframe about money because it is this thing that I think as I said, I have a complicated relationship with it. I am probably one of those people who in the past have been like, money, it's the
The
sin
devil
of
of
all."
currency.
Exactly. But it totally makes sense and it can create anxiety, but it can also minimize anxiety and it could also give you this feeling of kind of like a safety net so that you feel like you can fly with your creativity and your meaning. So I just appreciate you being in that conversation and chatting with us today.
We're excited for you in this podcast. Like I'm, really happy that you're doing this.
And then, I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
could.
think I'm sure it'll bring a lot of meaning to your life.
Such a great conversation, and I really appreciate hearing how both their individual and collective journeys led them to all these cool endeavors in line with their personal values. I look at Jennifer and Lisa as people who are in constant pursuit of meaning through their creativity and community organizing. And they're a great example of how to do this work in community and also in relationship with a life partner. Again, I'll provide links for Modern Family Finance and their film Out and Around in the description box below. I hope this episode inspired you to think about all those passion projects swirling in your head, and also your relationship to money and how that fits into living a life of meaning and purpose. Happy Pride to everyone out there around the globe, and thanks again for listening. Until next time. The views expressed by the speakers are their own, and their appearance on the podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Out is Through is a podcast for entertainment and educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are in need of support, please seek out a licensed mental health professional in your area.